Hey everyone, this is Maya with Access Your Bliss. Today is March 20th, 2019, and we are on the eve of the spring equinox as well as the super warm moon. So I wanted to do a tarot spread today, specifically based around that. So the questions that I've asked in the first position is going to be kind of what's the current climate, what are things like right now, what are the general energies. The second part of the question is what can we leave behind, or in the second position is what can we leave behind with winter, what can stay dead. The third question is going to be what's coming into bloom as we walk into spring, what's being born right now and seeking the light. And then in the fourth position, the question is going to be what is going to be our source of joy. How can we access our bliss as we walk into spring? So I've already done my premeditative shuffles and my inner process and process for reading the cards. So now I'm just going to pull for you what these four positions are. Okay, so I had to put a sweater on because I got really cold, but I wanted to share my cards with you for the spread that I was talking about earlier. And so the first card that I got, I read jumper cards, and I'm using the Wild Unknown Tarot deck, is the Nine of Wands. And so if you remember, the first question was about what's the current energy, where are things at right now, what's the current climate, however you'd like to phrase that. So the Nine of Wands is all about learning to delegate your tasks, lightening the load. If you think about the fact that the Nine of Wands comes before the Ten of Wands, the Ten of Wands card is all about excessive work and carrying a load much bigger than you're capable of carrying. So for me, I always look at this card as something where, you really need to lighten the load in order to make it to that next step, because if you continue at the pace that you're going to feel overburdened and overworked, and no one can be productive at that level. So I would say at this point in time, everything that's kind of coming together is that we're all feeling that, and we're ready for spring. We're ready for that change. We're ready to lighten the load. How can we do that? The second card and the second question that I had asked about was what can we leave behind in winter? What can remain dead? As we enter the season of winter, all the leaves fall, the trees die. Obviously, if you're in a place where there's winter. So I would say that based on the card that came next, the Four of Cups reversed, what we can all leave behind with winter, what can continue to lie dead, is all of these empty cups and this idea that we're disappointed, that we're disillusioned, that all those feelings that kind of come with winter, that seasonal affective disorder, the depressiveness, the darkness, the feeling heavy, all of those cups have been emptied, so just leave them. Don't bother picking them up. Don't bother crying over spilt milk or spilt water or empty cups. Just let all of that go. Don't even think about it. Just, they've already been empty. The cups are reversed, so let that be that. The third question that I asked was what's blossoming, what's blooming, what's coming into the light as we enter into spring on this equinox and during this full super warm moon. So the third card that I got was, again with the Wild Unknown Tarot, the Six of Wands. So this is the victory card. This is the card of things materializing, being recognized for your achievements. So I would say that while the previous card about winter was related to emptied cups, feeling like things were gone, things had become unmanageable with the Nine of Wands, I would say that moving into spring, we're going to start to see that recognition. We're going to see the little seedlings that have been nurtured, maybe ever so slightly, but we're going to see those sprouts. So if you think about spring, like that is when we start to see the first blooms, and I can tell you where I am in Germany, we are starting to see the daffodils poke through, and we're starting to see little dandelions and flowers come up. So the tulips are coming in blooms, so that's where we are. And that's my baby, so I gotta go grab my baby. Alright, I think where I left off before my daughter woke up was I was talking about the Six of Wands and the victory card. So this is where we left off. This is what's coming into bloom, what we can expect as we walk into spring. I think we're all going to find that we'll be recognized for some of the efforts that we put forth in the winter time, and between now and as the next lunar cycle unfolds, we'll see that, some of our achievements will be recognized, which is always nice. The fourth question that we asked was, what will be some sources of bliss? Where will the sunshine come from? And this was a two-part reading, well, two-part, two-card reading, so 2 cards jumped out at this point in time. So I'll say 4A and 4B, 4A being the first card that jumped out, 4B being the second card that jumped out. So 4A was the Three of Wands reversed, which for me is a card of really things not coming together. It's not necessarily that they're not materializing, it's just that the method that you're using isn't really working. So if you think about 2 things just next to each other, right? They could be touching, they could be apart. 2 things don't really come together to make anything, no matter which way you do it. But when you add the third thing, that's when you can finally make that triangle. So I always look at, and I love this representation in the Wild Unknown deck, because when you have all 3 pieces, they can come together, they materialize, they make something, it's an object, it's tangible. So the way I look at the Three of Wands reversed, because of that interpretation, is that things just aren't coming together. Whatever method, whatever materials you're trying to put together, it's not working. So how this relates to the bliss aspect and what's going to be the sunshine over the next season as we enter into spring is further explained by the Empress. So again, both of these were jumper cards. They both fell out. The first one to fall out was the Three of Wands, and behind the Three of Wands reversed, and then the card behind that was the Empress. So this is one of my favorite cards in the whole deck, in general, in any deck, not specific to the Wild Unknown. I find the Empress to be the Fertile Mother card. This is the card of, really the embodiment of Mother Nature. So represented by this tree is a perfect representation, symbolism of that. And then you have the moon in the background, which is also a symbol of femininity. So I look at that as we're in spring. This is the fertile time, right? So everything's blooming, everything's growing, the sprouts are coming, the sun is shining, April showers, spring May flowers, all of those things. So we're going to see everything sort of emerge. And because this is an equinox reading, it makes sense then that the Fertile Mother is going to be the one who's going to help us get there. And it also makes sense that she would be mothering us in a sense and telling us, hey, you might need to think about doing this a different way. You might think that the only way for this to work is X, Y, or Z, but in reality, it can also work if you maybe consider a different path. And we can all get stuck in our ways or stuck in a way and think, you know what, this is the only way that this is going to happen, is if I do it this way. And sometimes we have to step out of that perspective and kind of adopt a new worldview that might not be one that we want to adopt or one that we're seeing, but that's actually going to be what continues with the rest of the cards in this reading, propelling us to see our successes, propelling us to be recognized for our achievements, for us to be able to lighten our loads so that we're not overburdened, we're not overworked, we're not wasting our energies on things that aren't helping us to get to where we want to be. So as we walk into spring and we want to see those seeds emerging, we want to see those sprouts coming forth, really what we need to do is get creative, try new approaches, lighten our load, let go of things that aren't serving us. A lot of times people feel like, okay, I need to just give it one more chance. I need to give him or her one more chance. I need to give this job a little bit more time. I need to just see it through to the end. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes you actually need to scratch the whole idea and start fresh. Sometimes you need to try a new approach. Sometimes you need to stop it completely and start all over. Just like with the Four of Cups, sometimes the cups are all emptied and you just have to look at those empty cups and say, you know what, I'm going to walk away from that and I'm going to pursue something else. And that's okay. So the way that I look at this reading altogether is that for me, this full moon cycle isn't really, and walking into spring, this isn't really a super powerful soul transforming time. We have 4 of the minor arcana cards, we have 1 major arcana card. So for me, this situation is really one that's more about small day-to-day changes, things that are manageable, things that we can work with. It's not something that's going to feel so ultimately heavy and burdensome. It's stuff that we can work with. So I would say also, because we have 3 wands in the reading, so it's a majority wand heavy reading, that's a lot of fire, that's a lot of energy, that's a lot of action-based things. So be prepared to do, to move, to be active. Just like with the Empress, she's the creative mother. So I would say if you're feeling stuck and if you're still in the place of the Four of Cups where you're looking at the emptiness and feeling stuck there, if, as you see, both of these have the moon in the imagery. So for me, I would say, because one came out reversed, one came out upright, go get creative. In spring, as we enter this new season, go do something different. Step out of your comfort zone. If you can't get a new worldview, go find one. Go do something that you've never done. And that would be my advice to kind of conceptualize this whole reading. You know, emerge and bloom on your own as you enter spring, because this is going to be the push that you need to go further and to keep moving forward on your path and what you're destined to do. And yeah, that's where I would end that. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my first video. And yeah, if you have questions or comments or you'd like further expansion on the reading, just let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.